Langley Research Center, 1967. The air inside Building 1244 is thick with the scent of hot vacuum tubes, mimeograph ink, and percolating coffee. It's the sound, though, that defines the space. A relentless, rhythmic clatter of mechanical calculators. A sound like 1,000 metallic insects, each one chewing through numbers that will guide humanity to the moon. This is NASA's intellectual engine room, and Christine Darden, armed with a master's degree in applied mathematics and a mind that sees equations as elegant living things, has just been assigned her desk. Her official title is not mathematician or researcher, it is data analyst. Unofficially, she is a human computer. Her role is brutally specific: to take the complex differential equations conceived by the male engineers, the men in crisp white shirts who walk the halls with an air of proprietorship, and perform the painstaking, repetitive calculations required to solve them. She is not there to ask why. She is not there to innovate. She is there to be a processor, a human cog in a grand celestial machine. This wasn't a temporary assignment, a stepping stone to a more challenging role. This was a systemic pigeonhole, a carefully constructed box built from the legacy of racial and gender bias. Darden was entering an institution still grappling with its own identity in the throes of the Civil Rights Movement. The Civil Rights Act had passed only 3 years prior, but legislation moves faster than culture. On paper, segregation was dead. In practice, it lingered in the form of career ceilings and unspoken hierarchies. The West Area Computing Unit, the segregated group of African-American female mathematicians who had been instrumental to the agency's earlier successes, had been formally desegregated, but the mindset that created it remained. Women, especially black women, were seen as diligent, reliable, and perfectly suited for the meticulous, thankless work of computation. They were the bedrock, the foundation upon which the towering achievements of men were built. But they were not expected to design the towers themselves. Imagine the cognitive dissonance. Every day, Darden would apply her advanced understanding of fluid dynamics and numerical analysis to problems of immense complexity. She would plot data points for wind tunnel tests, verify orbital trajectories, and ensure the mathematical integrity of designs that were pushing the very limits of known physics. Her mind was operating at the frontier of aerospace engineering, yet her job description confined her to the role of a clerk. She would watch as male colleagues with the exact same qualifications, in some cases lesser qualifications, were hired directly as engineers. They were given research projects. They were encouraged to question assumptions. They were put on a track toward leadership. She was given a stack of worksheets. The public, captivated by the heroic narrative of the space race, saw the stoic faces of the astronauts and the confident, crew-cut engineers in mission control. They saw men walking on the moon, a triumph of American ingenuity. They never saw the women in Building 1244, the intellectual engine room whose contributions were as vital as any rocket fuel, yet whose names remained unread and whose potential remained largely untapped. The work was not simple. Being a computer required immense concentration and precision. A single misplaced decimal point, a single error in a multi-page calculation could compromise millions of dollars of research and delay critical projects. The pressure was immense. But for a mind like Darden's, the true pressure came from the intellectual confinement. It was the frustration of seeing a more elegant solution to a problem but being unauthorized to pursue it. It was the quiet agony of knowing you could contribute to the why but being restricted to the how. This systemic undervaluing wasn't just an injustice, it was a strategic blunder. It was an organization tasked with achieving the impossible, willingly sidelining some of its sharpest minds. We can look at archival massa employment handbooks from the era with their gendered language and rigidly defined career paths and see the architecture of this bias laid bare. We can read Darden's own accounts of those early years, the quiet determination mixed with a simmering frustration. She was doing the work of an engineer, but without the title, the pay, or the respect. The question then echoes through the silent, calculator-filled halls of history. How many breakthroughs were stifled before they even began? For Christine Darden, this wasn't an abstract historical query. It was a daily reality. She wasn't just calculating the trajectories for rockets designed by others, she was calculating the trajectory of her own ambition against a system designed to keep her and her brilliance firmly on the ground. Following years of meticulous calculations in that systemic pigeonhole, the answer to whether Christine Darden's own breakthrough would be stifled came not with a single dramatic act of defiance, but with a quiet, persistent, and deeply logical question. After 5 years of proving her worth, of delivering flawless work that her male engineering colleagues depended upon, she approached her supervisor, John V. Becker, a respected division chief. She didn't ask for a raise. She didn't file a complaint. She simply asked, "Why is it that men with the same background as me are hired as engineers and I'm not?" It was a question born of unassailable logic and undeniable performance, and it was a question the system could no longer comfortably answer. That simple, powerful query was the catalyst. It led to her transfer out of the computing pool and into the Supersonic Transport Division, a hard-won victory that moved her from the periphery of the action to its very core. And the problem at that core was one of the most intractable in all of aviation, the sonic boom. To understand the magnitude of this challenge, you have to understand that the sonic boom isn't just a loud noise, it's a physical assault. As an aircraft exceeds the speed of sound, about 767 miles per hour at sea level, it's moving faster than the pressure waves it creates. Those waves can't get out of the way, so they build up and coalesce into a single massive shock wave of compressed air that trails the aircraft like the wake of a boat. When this shock wave reaches the ground, it's not a boom, it's a sudden, violent change in air pressure. It was powerful enough to shatter windows, crack plaster, and terrify livestock and people for miles on either side of the flight path. This was the single greatest barrier to commercial supersonic flight over land. The Anglo-French Concorde was a technological marvel, but it was restricted to transatlantic routes precisely because of its deafening boom. In the United States, public outcry over test flights had been so intense that it led to a federal ban on overland commercial supersonic travel in 1973, effectively killing the American supersonic transport program. The problem wasn't building a plane that could fly fast, it was building a plane that could fly fast. This is the monumental challenge that Christine Darden now faced, not as a calculator, but as a researcher. She dove into the existing theories of men like Adolf Buseman and NASA's own Richard Whitcomb, who had developed the area rule for reducing transonic drag. But Darden was interested in what happened the sound barrier was broken. She hypothesized that by carefully shaping the aircraft, specifically its nose, wings, and engine placement, one could manipulate how the shock waves formed and combined. Instead of one massive explosive boom, could you create a series of smaller, weaker shock waves that would reach the ground as a series of soft thumps, or perhaps even be imperceptible? To test this, she did what the system had previously forbidden her from doing. She began to innovate. She taught herself the Fortran programming language and, working with the early mainframe computers at Langley, developed one of the first computer programs to model and predict the intensity of sonic booms. Archival memos and internal reports from this period reveal her relentless pursuit. They show her persistent requests for more computer time, for access to wind tunnel data, for advanced training. Each request was a small battle against the institutional inertia that still saw her through the lens of her old role. But her results began to speak for themselves. Her code was elegant. Her predictions were accurate. She ran simulation after simulation, inputting different fuselage shapes, different wing configurations, and watching the data spool out from the loud, clanking line printers. What emerged was a new understanding. Her program could not only predict the boom from an existing design, but could be run in reverse to define a shape for a low-boom aircraft. From her desk, using the power of computational fluid dynamics, the first concrete, mathematically proven equations to predict and systematically reduce the strength of a sonic boom began to emerge. The engineers who once handed her worksheets now came to her desk with blueprints, asking for her analysis, her insight. The question was no longer if a woman could be an engineer at NASA. The question became, could this one woman truly reshape the physics of flight? The data spooling from the mainframe printers suggested yes. But transforming theoretical code into a silent sky was another challenge entirely, a challenge that would define her legacy. Building on her foundational work, that personal and scientific revolution arrived not with a bang, but with the meticulously engineered absence of one. Over the next 2 decades, Christine Darden didn't just contribute to the field of supersonic aerodynamics, she came to define a critical part of it. She became a globally recognized expert, the leader of NASA's Sonic Boom team, and eventually the technical director of the agency's high-speed research program. Her models and algorithms, once novel theoretical constructs, became the standard tools of the trade, published across dozens of peer-reviewed papers and presented at international conferences from Paris to Tokyo. She had shattered her own personal sound barrier, moving from an anonymous computer to a celebrated authority whose work was essential to the future of flight. This journey was capped by her earning a PhD in mechanical engineering from George Washington University in 1983, a degree she pursued while working full-time at NASA and raising a family, a testament to her unstoppable drive. Her legacy is not a statue or a building named in her honor. It is something far more profound and integrated into the very fabric of modern aerospace engineering. It is written in the language of vectors, pressure gradients, and optimized airfoils. When you see the designs for NASA's modern X-59 Quest, the quiet supersonic technology demonstrator, you are seeing the direct lineage of Darden's work. The aircraft's impossibly long, slender nose, its uniquely shaped canards, and the precise sweep of its wings are not arbitrary stylistic choices. They are the physical manifestation of the low-boom principles that Darden's computer programs first proved possible. Her work provided the validated, predictive tools that allowed engineers to move from expensive, trial-and-error physical prototypes to sophisticated digital design. She turned the art of aircraft shaping into a science of sonic boom reduction. While she never achieved the household name status of some of her male astronaut or engineering counterparts, her name appears where it matters most in the scientific community, in countless patents and academic citations. If you trace the intellectual history of low-boom flight, you will find Darden's papers are a foundational node, a critical link in the chain of knowledge that connects the theories of the 1950s to the flying hardware of the 21st century. This is the quiet, enduring nature of true scientific impact. It's not about the flash of a single celebrated discovery, but the persistent, influential ripple of foundational work that enables generations of innovation to follow. Today, as private companies like Boom Supersonic work to resurrect commercial supersonic travel, the principles of boom shaping that Darden pioneered are central to their entire business case. The possibility of a future where one can fly from New York to London in 3 hours without shattering a single window on the ground below rests on the mathematical bedrock she laid decades ago. Christine Darden's journey proves that true innovation isn't always celebrated with a ticker-tape parade, but its effects can change the world silently and profoundly. She didn't just solve an engineering problem. In her own quiet, determined way, she helped solve a systemic one. By refusing to accept the limits placed upon her, she carved a path for the countless women and people of color who would follow her into the halls of NASA and other scientific institutions. Her struggle unlocked potential far beyond her own research. Her legacy isn't just in the quiet hum of a future supersonic jet. It's a reminder that genius doesn't recognize race or gender, even when our institutions do. And it leaves us with one final, urgent question. Whose calculations are we ignoring today?